Hi everyone. Today we are going to debunk the truth. What if Napoleon had conquered all of Europe? Picture this. You're standing on the cliffs of Dover. The wind is bitter and the channel should be empty. But it isn't. A fleet massive, unrelenting, moves across the waves. French banners flicker in the mist. You blink, and the impossible is happening. Napoleon has crossed the sea. In our real history, this never happened. Britain protected by water, and the Royal Navy remained Napoleon's great unsolved problem. But in this timeline, he solves it. You might not believe this story, but this is always a warning not to be taken lightly. So before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and your local time. Now listen and leave your comments, and let's get started. What if the French eagle had truly spread its wings across the continent, not temporarily, not for a decade, but permanently? By 1812, Napoleon had conquered most of mainland Europe. But what if he had gone all the way crushed? Russia subdued Britain and created a pan-European empire under his name. You'd live in a Europe without borders. The Rhine, the Danube, the Thames, not lines of defense, but veins of a single body. One legal code, one education system, one propaganda machine, and one man casting a shadow over it all. Would it have been a new Rome, or just a better polished tyranny? Napoleon would have redrawn the map not with diplomacy, but with steel. Small states like Portugal, Switzerland, Bavaria gone, absorbed. Local kings dethroned or turned into prefects. Even the Pope reduced to a ceremonial relic. French would likely become the administrative language. Street signs in Warsaw in French. School books in Barcelona in French. Resistance would exist, but the empire would teach obedience from a young age. Now picture this, you're walking through an imperial university in Prague. You're taught the Napoleonic Code. Your calendar is decimalized. You celebrate the emperor's birthday like a religious holiday. And in this Europe, the concept of national identity begins to dissolve. You're no longer German, or Hungarian, or Sicilian. You are imperial. But don't mistake order for peace. What holds this Europe together is not unity, but discipline. Surveillance, a vast bureaucratic machine where spies sit next to scribes. Napoleon's state would be efficient and utterly relentless. In this timeline, there's no Congress of Vienna, no balance of power, no Waterloo. Instead, we get a single hegemon that redefines the 19th century. Imagine Napoleon's Europe facing the same pressures of industrialization, nationalism, and colonial rivalry. But with no one left to challenge him, would he become enlightened or mad with power? Would we see the Eiffel Tower rise in every major city, or a Europe where every cathedral is draped in tricolors and every citizen whispers his name like a prayer? Or a curse? That's the question. And it's only the beginning. A Europe under Napoleon would not merely be a continent of unified laws or conscripted armies. It would be a graveyard for monarchies. The Habsburgs, the Romanovs, the British crown. Extinguished or reduced to marionettes, their crowns melted down into medals of Napoleon's victory. Gone are centuries-old rituals. Coronations replaced with military parades. Thrones become chairs in puppet parliaments, the very concept of royalty redefined. Under Napoleon's rule, birthright dies and meritocracy is born, or so the empire would claim. But merit, through whose lens, through whose favor? In this world, titles are no longer inherited. They're earned on battlefields or in back rooms of imperial favor. You don't become a duke because of your bloodline. You become one because you served. But don't be fooled. This is not democracy. It is order wrapped in the illusion of progress. Think about religion. The Catholic Church, once dominant, now tamed. No longer a political force, but a tool useful when it praises the emperor, disposable when it resists. In this reality, the Concordat of 1801 isn't a compromise, it's the beginning of a leash. The Pope, a relic paraded when needed, silenced when not. The cross and the eagle share the altar, but only one of them speaks. In Protestant lands, it's no different. The church bends or it breaks. God still exists, but he speaks French, wears a uniform, and signs decrees from the Tuileries Palace. And with the monarchs gone, with the church subdued, what fills the void? The state. The empire becomes your godfather, your schoolmaster, your judge. It baptizes you in its ideology, raises you in its language, and punishes you in its silence. Cultural identities begin to blur. Folk songs rewritten, myths rewritten. Even holidays are redesigned to honor battles and victories, not saints or local heroes. Bastille Day replaces harvest festivals. The eagle replaces the lion, the wolf, the bear. But the most chilling shift isn't what's lost. It's what's replaced. Imagine a child in Krakow. She grows up reciting oaths to the emperor. She sees her parents whisper about the old ways, but she doesn't understand. To her, Napoleon has always been. There is no Austria, no Prussia, no Tsar, just the empire, just Paris. This is not just military victory, it is cultural annihilation. Soft, silent, complete. And perhaps, just perhaps, Napoleon would see himself not merely as emperor, but as the founder of a new civilization. Rome collapsed. His would not, or so he would believe. But in the shadows, there would still be murmurs of kings once crowned, of banners once raised, of peoples who once ruled themselves. Revolution had devoured the old world. Now, it devours itself. Industry innovation and total control. Sounds like progress, right? Now imagine this, in a Europe completely under Napoleon's command, the smokestacks of Manchester, the coal of the Ruhr Valley, the shipyards of Venice, all humming in perfect synchronization. Not for profit, not for competition, but for empire. What if Napoleon had not only unified the continent, but accelerated its transformation, not through markets, but through mandates? Factories rise, but under strict control. Inventors are celebrated, yes, but only if their work serves imperial interest. The telegraph, the steam engine, the rifled musket, each weaponized, centralized, classified. The Industrial Revolution might come faster, but narrower. No innovation without authorization. Imagine an empire where every machine bears the stamp of the eagle. Every discovery a state secret. Progress doesn't flow freely. It's channeled like a river through stone walls. And the workers, no strikes, no unions. Napoleon tolerates no unrest. He would institutionalize labor, not liberate it. A ministry of work might emerge meticulously assigning roles, regulating output, drafting workers like soldiers. A bureaucratic machine built to run the mechanical one. Europe doesn't thrive under Napoleon. It functions like clockwork, like chains, and yet there's another side. What if Napoleon had seen the potential in centralized education? In infrastructure, imagine high-speed trade routes drawn by imperial decree, a continent-wide highway system, a unified postal service. Standard weights measures currencies decided in Paris, implemented everywhere. The metric system becomes universal, not because it's useful, but because it's imperial. Railways span from Bordeaux to Budapest. Science academies blossom not out of curiosity, but out of duty. The empire might even venture into early environmental policy, out of necessity, not ideology. Deforestation controlled, resources monitored. Why? Because waste is weakness, and weakness is unacceptable. But in all this brilliance lies a shadow. Surveillance. The same roads that bring letters, bring spies. The same trains that move goods, move troops. The same census that organizes society, labels the unwanted. A world without war between nations, but full of internal war against ideas. Art is regulated. Philosophy is policed. You can dream, yes, but only if your dreams serve the narrative. No communism, no liberalism, no anarchism, all smothered in the cradle. Because in this world there is only one revolution that matters, the one that brought Napoleon to power. And nothing must threaten it. So ask yourself, can progress bloom in a greenhouse of fear? Or does control eventually choke the roots? The answer depends on how much freedom you're willing to sacrifice for a better machine. Now, we turn outward, because if Napoleon ruled all of Europe, where would he go next? The oceans, the colonies, the world. You see, conquest doesn't end at borders. It stretches to where maps turn white. And in this reality, there are no rivals on the continent. Britain has fallen, Russia tamed the Ottomans, subdued or co-opted. Napoleon now stands at the shores of global ambition. He gazes west, to the Americas, the Louisiana Purchase. It never happens. Instead, New Orleans remains imperial, guarded by French warships, supplied by European factories, and governed by Parisian law. Imagine it a chain of colonies across the Caribbean, through the Gulf of Mexico, and into South America, all flying the same imperial flag. A French-speaking Brazil, a Napoleonic Cuba, even a foothold in Africa, not carved by rival empires, but absorbed in one sweep by a single continental power. And with Britain gone, India becomes vulnerable. Now that's the question. Would Napoleon stop at Europe, or would he become Caesar, Alexander, and Genghis in one breath? Colonization wouldn't just expand. It would intensify. Unified command means unified force. No inter-imperial conflicts, no colonial competition, just raw, relentless imperial extraction. And with that comes resistance. Not just from distant tribes or island kingdoms, but from within. Revolts in Egypt, rebellions in Haiti, uprisings in Algeria, Ireland, Quebec. But in this world there's no rival superpower to help them. No Britain to arm rebels, no Russia to send supplies. There is only Napoleon, and yet resistance always finds a crack. Perhaps a coalition forms not of kings but of revolutionaries. Former Jacobins, exiled liberals, suppressed voices who once praised liberty, now choking on its ashes. Picture this, an underground railroad of ideas. Smuggled pamphlets crossing the Alps. Secret radio towers in the Balkans. A Polish rebel broadcasts in code, "The Emperor has no clothes." But for now, the world is ruled by an empire with no natural enemy. Only internal threats and external dreams. Perhaps North America slowly becomes a battlefield. The United States, just a fledgling republic, watches nervously. Do they ally with Napoleon or resist him? Do they remain a beacon of liberty or vanish beneath an imperial tide? And what of Asia? A Europe united under Napoleon might turn its gaze eastward toward China, toward Japan. Diplomacy with one hand, gunboats in the other. It would not be a scramble for empire. It would be a march, single-minded, ruthless, inevitable. And yet, the larger the empire, the more fragile its spine. Can one man rule the world? Or does he create the illusion of control while the world waits for him to fall? History tells us empires do not die in explosions. They die in whispers. The future that might have been. Let's take a breath. Close your eyes and imagine it never ended. The Napoleonic Empire didn't collapse. It adapted. It evolved. Centuries passed and it remained. By the year 1900, there is no German Empire, no British Empire. Only one, the Imperium Europaeum, a vast superstate ruled by descendants of Napoleon. No world wars, no trenches in Flanders, no Holocaust, but something else. A world shaped not by conflict between nations, but by the slow erosion of dissent. Would this have been a golden age or a velvet prison? Think about technology. With no rival states, scientific funding is massive but directed. There's no race to the moon between powers. There's only the empire's pace. Still, perhaps Europe lands a man on Mars by 1960, not because it must, but because it can. Napoleon's dream expands into the cosmos. But here's the dark flip side. Without national sovereignty, without democratic experimentation, diversity becomes ornamental. Languages are tolerated but not encouraged. Cultural expressions sanitized for imperial harmony. Every opera must pass censors. Every book must reflect the glory of the state. And beneath the surface, whispers. Could an underground movement rise? Maybe by the 21st century, a digital resistance is born. Not nationalistic, but human. Artists, hackers, philosophers, smuggling forbidden thoughts through encrypted channels. Virtual revolutions instead of physical ones. A new Bastille, but in code. And now, think about yourself. Born in this world. Would you question it? Would you dare? Or would you live comfortably in the system, educated, fed, clothed, yet never free? This alternate future is no longer about Napoleon. It's about the choices we make when we have power. Would the empire slowly become democratic? Would it collapse from within? Or would it quietly redefine what freedom means until no one remembers the difference? That is the core of this what if. Not just imagining a different past, but questioning the future it creates. Because perhaps the scariest world is not the one ruled by war, but the one where peace has a price. And that price is you. So what if Napoleon had conquered all of Europe? We've journeyed through a world where borders dissolved beneath a single flag. Monarchies erased, churches silenced, nations replaced by a unified but suffocating identity. We imagined factories humming in orchestrated unity science moving forward, but only under watchful eyes. An industrial revolution without rebellion. A technological marvel without moral choice. We watched the empire stretch outward into the Americas, into Africa, perhaps even beyond Earth, unopposed, unchallenged. And yet the seeds of resistance, of doubt, always found cracks. Because even the strongest systems rot from the inside. But the most haunting image we're left with isn't one of war. It's of a perfectly ordered society. Efficient, disciplined, silent. A Europe without pain, perhaps. But also without possibility, without true voices, without soul. Napoleon's empire might have brought peace to the continent. It might have spared us world wars, genocides, and chaos. But what would we have traded in return? And if you were born in that world, would you even know what you had lost? In the end, history teaches us something strange. We don't just shape the past, we inherit the consequences of paths not taken. So, would you choose a united, glorious empire led by genius, or the messy, dangerous freedom we call democracy? That's the question, and that's why these what-ifs matter.